Today, Darrell, it is motherfuckers at the gym that don't put their shit away.
Love of God, shut the fuck up when people want to celebrate something. If you don't celebrate it, okay.
A few weeks back, we had Rozicki, an amazing Canadian boxer. He was 13-0 with 13 knockouts, and he put on one of the best performances I've ever seen. Just a 12-round fucking.
To a guy in the UFC who's pampered as fuck, pulls out of fights, and apparently can't make weight. We're talking about Paulo Costa. He was fighting Vettori on the weekend. Big fight here with big implications.
2 guys, 1 bench. Shit talking. Strict sports. Combat sports. Over.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to 2 Guys, 1 Bench.
Where we talk a lot of shit.
And we drop some truth bombs on your bitch asses.
Before you do anything else, make sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment.
Rant of the week. We're about to pop some caps.
All right, guys, we want to kick it off with our rant of the week. Russ, what do you have for us?
Well, I got a simple one here today, Darrell. It is motherfuckers at the gym that don't put their shit away. I mean, I've been in a gym, working in a gym for almost a decade and going to gyms for most of my life. And one thing I can say is, you get to a gym and you see some equipment that's left out, or, just something laying around that someone could have easily put away. They just don't. Or you catch those motherfuckers mid-act, just walking away from the equipment they just used without unloading it. Fucking makes me fucking furious. And, as a gym owner now, even people that come in, drop-ins, or even some of the trainers that rent the place out, they just leave a little thing out of place. I'm fucking OCD as hell, and it just sets me off. And that's what I wanted to rant about, Darrell.
Yeah, I totally understand that. When I was lifting at a rec gym, I saw that a lot more. Now that I'm over at a powerlifting and strong gym, I find that the people that do it the most are the newbies, or people that aren't like strength athletes, because they actually respect the space they're in. But it's definitely always the random middle-aged dudes who come in and think it's the gym owner's job to clean up after you and be your caretaker. It's like when you're at home, you don't just get done eating and just flip your fucking dishes in your living room. No, you go put them back in your kitchen. But these same people will come out, bring out the 25s because they're not strong enough for the 45s, and leave them all around the fucking gym, or leave your bars out, or don't clean up the chalk, etc.
Yeah, and if you see a stack of weights, it's pretty simple. I mean, babies can put fucking shapes in the fucking different containers by the shape. Well, you see a 45-pound plate, motherfucker, you put it with the 45s, not the fucking 35s. Number one, 35s are illegal in any gym that I go to. But, you just put the shapes together. It's not that hard. But people still manage to fuck that up.
All right, and for my rant of the week, I wanted to talk about holiday Scrooges. I realize it technically isn't holiday time anymore. Thanksgiving was a couple weeks ago, but American Thanksgiving's coming up. Then there's going to have Halloween, all that shit. But what I want to talk about is the people, regardless of the fucking holiday, there's always those fucking people that say, I don't celebrate that. This is a bad holiday for this reason. Do you still get the days off? Do you still like the days off? Do you like the stat pay on that? Do you like the time and a half or double time and a half? I bet you fucking do. I bet you like getting a day off for a holiday you don't celebrate. So please, for the love of God, shut the fuck up when people want to celebrate something. If you don't celebrate it, okay, stay at home and shut the fuck up.
All right, Darrell. Well, I can see you on that. But one thing I do want to say, if you're over 30 and still fucking celebrating Halloween and going to Halloween parties and dressing up and fucking thinking about half a year about your costume, what you're going to wear and where you're going to go, and fucking being on a bus, party bus, driving around, you're a fucking idiot. It's past your prime, just like going to the raves and the parties and all the stampedes and being Uncle Pervy. Yeah, I mean, you could put a costume on, put on that Bill Cosby costume. I don't give a fuck. Darrell?
Yeah, to continue on that, especially more so for the guys and the girls, at a certain point you got to let it go, and that point is 26 years old, so you're 4 years past it.
And that's what we wanted to say.
Combat sports.
All right, everybody, combat sports. And a few weeks back we had Rozicki, an amazing Canadian boxer. He was 13-0 with 13 knockouts, and he put on one of the best performances I've ever seen. Just a 12-round fucking slugfest And the heart on this kid was amazing. He didn't get the win, but he's definitely won a few rounds and put the pressure on. And Rivas just couldn't put him down. And so amazing fight. I just want to say thanks for putting your heart out there and leaving it all in the ring. Darrell?
Yeah, like Ryan said when we talked to him a couple weeks ago, he said they chose me for a reason. He's supposed to walk through me. It's supposed to be an easy night. If he doesn't get me out within the first couple rounds, he's the one who's going to look bad. And at the end of the day, he does, because you're fighting a guy not only who was a last minute fill-in, like 3 weeks kind of thing, like was it
3 to 5 weeks,
3 to 5 week range. You found someone on last minute who, even though he's in shape, you've been training the whole time in a fight camp, getting prepared for a certain opponent. You handpicked who you fought. You fought someone who's 20 pounds lighter than you, even when they're at their heaviest, and you're used to boxing heavyweights. So the fact that this man went 12 rounds is fucking amazing for Ryan. Hopefully, we're going to see him bounce back strong, because he didn't get knocked out, and we're going to see a big recovery from him.
Definitely. He took so many, powerful shots and didn't go down. And, he even spent, the night in the hospital. He was super dehydrated. 12-round fight takes a lot out of you. But he looks hungry and ready to get back in there. Awesome work.
All right, so we kind of want to transition from boxing to MMA. We go from a fighter that accepted a fight on short notice and put it all on the table with Ryan, to a guy in the UFC who's pampered as fuck, pulls out of fights, and apparently can't make weight. We're talking about Paulo Costa. He was fighting Vettori on the weekend. Big fight here with big implications, because the winner really would be the next person in line to fight Izzy, or after Izzy and Whitaker fight. Yeah. So it's going to be a number one contender fight. So obviously you would want to come in shape, ready to fight, and put on a good performance. Or you could come in 30 pounds overweight 5 days before you fight, can't make the weight, and then lose a decision in one of the biggest fights of your career.
Yeah, comes in and says, I'm not going to make weight, I want to catch weight. And then they finally decided on 205, I guess Vettori, that's kind of a good thing, because he didn't have to cut weight and do a weight cut. And went on to beat his ass. So that's good. And I just wanted to say, everybody in the MMA community is just calling this guy out on his clown ass behavior. I even saw, Rumble Johnson talking about he missed weight and, a lot of times, but he tried his hardest to get down there. Like, he looked like he's on death's door. We're talking about a guy that fights, heavyweight or heavyweight, but he was going down to welterweight at 170. He looked like a fucking skeleton back in those days, but he still tried, right? But this guy just shows up fight week. No, I'm not going to do it. And they still put on the fight. And so now it seems like Dana White's like, this guy's not fighting at 185 anymore. So he's not even going to have that option to fight for the belt. And he's going to go have to fight guys that are bigger, and it'll probably beat his ass even more.
Yeah, it seems like the logical choice. I'm glad Dana made this decision, because we've seen guys in the past before who can't make weight. Like, for a while, Johnny Hendricks could never fucking make weight.
Yeah.
And he just kept letting him do it. Darren Till had to miss weight a couple times before he had to move up. Gastelum, known for missing weight.
Oh, man.
And he never was moving up. But I'm glad Dana just put his foot down, because I think he's probably had enough shit out of Brazilian Ricky Martin. And it's just enough. Like, I forget who posted about it. They said there needs to be a stop to these missing weight. It's not enough to just find someone 10 or 20%. I realize I'm talking about other people's money, and they do deserve that. But while one person's cutting and doing everything they can to make sure the fight goes on, you're just fucking around. And they were saying, like, every pound you should be fined another 10% of your purse. And I'm on board with that, to the extent that if it's 10 pounds, I think you should either be cut or not get paid, because you're just not being a fucking professional. Paulo Costa had a shit ton of excuses after the fight about why. He said, I didn't want to say anything because it'll be an excuse. I'm like, well, yeah, we knew you had excuses. That's why you didn't drop weight in the first place. He's saying he hurt his left bicep weeks ago. if that was the case, why didn't you tell Dana and say, Dana, I hurt my bicep, I can't do this, instead of prolonging it and making sure they can't find a replacement within 4 or 5 days, because anyone you put against Vettori in that short notice is going to get fucking ragdolled, as he's done to the entire division except for Izzy. And it's still the only guy currently out there who hasn't been put out by Izzy. He's stood in there with 2 fights. Yes, he lost both, but Izzy didn't put him out. He's a tough fucker, and you're not going to find a quality opponent for him on 4 days.
Definitely, and we're talking about this, but Paulo Costa, he pulled out of a fight before, and he was claiming an injury or whatnot, but it turns out the motherfucker was getting a hair transplant, and his bald ass couldn't, train for a certain amount of time, so that's why he wasn't able to fight. And you'll see pictures of it here, of him getting the transplant. And what I want to talk about later in the next section is how shitty of a transplant that was.
You ain't fooling anyone. Cul-de-sac corner. Shave that shit.
All right, so like Russ alluded to earlier, we want to talk about Cul-de-sac Corner, a section we haven't had on in a while, because for the most part, some guys out there are taking care of their hairlines. Some people are missing 6 months to a year and prolonging fights and then showing up still bald, like Paulo Costa. And I know you're wondering, what? He has full hair. Well, did you see him in the post-fight? He was patchy as fuck. He looked like a lollipop that was dropped on a barbershop floor. And we just want to give a shout out to the old scalp tech helping out the bald fucks, and we think they need to definitely work with Paulo Costa, and he needs to let that shit go, because hey, I'm bald as fuck, but I rock it all the time. I don't get fucking ant legs stapled to the back of my head like Paulo Costa and then go get ragdolled by an Italian.
Yeah, post-fight, he looked like a fucking baby elephant with the, just little spiky hair popping up. And I just want to say, transplants are ridiculous. Like, you see these, for whatever reason, my Instagram search function, all I get on there is guys that are bald, getting fucking transplants, fades. I don't know why it's and guys with 6-packs, but we don't talk about that. And anyways, it's just, I see these guys and they're like, they draw this line around their head and then they get all these hairs implanted, like Floyd Mayweather had it, and he looks terrible. Terrible.
He's $1 billion man, and he has trap house carpet glued to his chin.
Yeah, he even had the goatee and everything done. I don't know where he got the hairs, probably off his ass, but it looks terrible. But Paulo Costa, yeah, you gotta shave that shit and then just get some scalp tech, and you'll be fine.
Quit being a fake fuck. Hard truths. You can't handle the truth.
Okay, everybody, we have some hard truths here, and that's for some UFC fighters that have been spending their money like a fucking idiot. Darrell?
Yeah, so what we wanted to talk about today is fast money. It can come fast, but it can also leave even faster. And what we want to talk about is, most notably, Francis Ngannou. He's all over social media, playing the victim, talking about, I shouldn't be the heavyweight champ and need to borrow money going into a fight camp. No, you're right, but that's not the UFC's fault. Maybe you shouldn't spend over $1 million in little under a year. How the fuck are you broke going into it? I understand the breakdown that they do. Like, let's just start with $1 million. They said, let's say half of it immediately is tax. Let's just say, so you got 500 grand. Then they got to pay gym fees and dues and everything. Well, they're not 250 grand in fees. Your fees aren't going to shoot through the roof just because you're a pro. Everybody's paying the same fees when you're going to a gym. Yes, you may have access to better shit, but the people beside you, you're not getting charged 50 grand and that guy's getting charged 1 grand just because of your name, or else that gym couldn't stay alive. Everybody's getting a portion. So how you go from making 700 grand, I think the last fight, and something around that the fight before, is fucking ridiculous that you don't have anything out there. Meanwhile, his opponent isn't bitching about money, and he's not the champ. He's the interim champ who's actually coached by Francis's old coach, but yet he doesn't have money problems. How come he's not bitching about it? I understand UFC sometimes have taken advantage of fighters and put them in contracts and won't let them out. That I don't agree with. But when you have a fighter that's bitching about their money, you got to realize just because you make something quick doesn't mean it's going to keep coming in like that all the time. You get paid to fight, but you got to be smart long term, because all it takes is literally one punch, one kick, one armbar, and all that could come to an end. We saw it with quite a few fighters, guys that are on the rise. They lose a couple times, you never want to see them again. And unfortunately, that could be Francis. Let's say he gets knocked out cold and to the point where he can't fight again. What are you going to do then? You're just going to be broke again.
Yeah, definitely. And this isn't some sport like basketball where you just got to dribble a ball and chuck it in a hoop. Even then, guys get injured all the time. That's how I blew up my ACL, Darrell, multiple times. But, you know, obviously a higher pay scale. But this is a sport, like Darrell said, where you're going to get knocked out, you're going to get fucked up. So if you think, oh, yeah, I'll still be fighting in 5 years, you might be, you might be in a fucking wheelchair in 5 years. Who knows? You look at some of the guys now that are trying to make comebacks, Chuck Liddell, and, he's broke, and Tito Ortiz are trying to stay relevant, and they're just getting knocked out. And so, they're desperate because they need money, obviously. And so it's very sad, but, Darrell and I were talking about if we had a couple $1 million, we probably wouldn't just go out and buy a fucking Bentley and a baller mansion and then be gone with it. No, it's like if you look at some fighters that probably spent their money wisely. I also look at other fighters that have never made that much money, like my sensei, Sakurai Ryuta, who also has never fucking missed weight in 2 different weight classes over a 20-plus year career. But when I see him, he's happy as fuck because he has his gym, he has his students, kind of like me. I really just love passing on information and stuff like that. So I get it. You're trying to be a baller or whatever. And maybe Francis has gone and spent some money on his community back in Africa. I'm not sure too much about that. But still, man, I mean, what kind of fight camp are you doing anyways? It doesn't take much to have a couple sparring partners and your coaches. Like, that's not much money.
And it makes no sense because, like most fighters will tell you, you pay your camp after. So how do you need the money now when you don't pay them till you fight? Most people do that, especially the up and coming people. So I'm pretty sure they'd be okay with you paying them after. Why do you need the money now? You're obviously overextended. And it comes down to bad financial investments, most likely. So either you're just spending money like you're Conor McGregor, but you got to realize you're not Conor McGregor. And that's to literally anybody who's making that fast money, coming up in their sport. They think, oh, this is going to last forever. And then you see all these people that are broke. In every sport you see it. And even Israel Adesanya, I forget which interview it was GQ or something. They're showing how he spent his first money. The first couple things he bought were jewelry and a $500K car. Why the fuck would the biggest purchase you make off the bat be a car? Something that depreciates right away. You don't have money like that right now. Like I said, what if you get knocked out and people just stop caring about your ass? What if you blow something out in your fight, can't fight for 2 years? What's that McLaren doing? You're going to sell it, okay, and get less than half for it? Great job.
Definitely. So you guys be careful with your money. You're making a lot, and spend it wisely.
Technique of the week.
Okay, everybody, so technique of the week. Well, for all the gym bros out there, every guy out there wants to talk about their bench press. How much you bench. It's the fucking biggest conversation point of most guys, and sadly, a lot of you guys, it's not enough. It's fucking pathetic. If you're a man, you need at least a 225-pound bench, or else you're just not a man in my books, Darrell.
Yeah, bench for the most part, I understand everybody really obsesses over it, but they're missing a lot of small things, and it could be fixed quite easily and enough to the point where you see 10 to 20 pounds added on your bench in a short training cycle.
Yeah, we're talking about, probably an 8 to 12 week training cycle. one training cycle. And you know, if you follow the things I'm gonna show you today, you're gonna probably put 10 to 20 pounds on your bench, especially if you're not, you know, an avid bencher. If you're only benching once a week, that's your first problem. So we're gonna go over number one, setup, and here we go. Okay, everybody, so number one, you gotta think of the bench press as not just your chest or your chesticles or your pecs or your pectorals or whatever. That's the only thing you're worried about, lifting the weight. No, bench press is a compound movement, and you need to use your entire body in order to get the maximal, you know, strength. So number one, we're gonna talk about the setup and how I like to set up, and Darrell's gonna talk about some things he likes to set up. So number one, I always like to get a good position. So I get my clients to slide out a little bit more, kind of like, so the bar is right around your nipple area, all right? I'm not getting too kinky here. Okay, so then you can either reach here, doesn't matter, or you can get here to get your position a little better. But number two, before you do that, we're looking down at Darrell's feet, okay? So look at his feet, how close in they are to the bench. You can be wide as well, I don't mind that, because what we're trying to do is get leg drive. So he's gonna suck his toes in as close as he can. A little bit more, Darrell, towards me. I want
Towards my back?
Yeah, on your tippy toes, good. Now we're gonna bridge and pull down and get, look at that, that's a nice bridge. So why do we bridge? Number one, we're getting a higher arch here. That's good, that's gonna raise this a bit, place where we need to touch. And then also, Darrell is gonna be ready to use his leg drive. So right now, Darrell has his feet on his tippy toes. In some federations, that's okay. And that, if Darrell feels comfortable with that, that's okay. I like to kind of wiggle down a little bit more and then be on my heels. All right? You don't have to be as close to the bench as you want. You can go even wider with your legs, but right there is fine. The biggest thing is tightness. You need to be tight. So now that Darrell's here, he's tight, everything's dialed in. Number one, guys, this fucking feels terrible. It's not fun. You're not here to be feeling good. This feels like, especially your first few sets, like you're put into some sort of torture rack, okay? Now, hand placement. Darrell, he's got a very strong back, and so he likes to go a little wider. That's fine. Darrell's gonna find his spot. Everybody's different, okay? Okay, so now we're set in. Our shoulder blades are locked into the bench. That's number one. Your shoulder blades are there, squeezed together, okay? Before he unracks, you're gonna treat this just like you're gonna do the lift. You're gonna take a huge breath. Unrack, good, bring it out. Bring the bar out, the bar has to come out, okay? Now one more deep breath. Down, touch, and press. Good, rack. There we go. I like to call this, Darrell, you can get up for a sec. So, I just coined this term this week, everybody. It's a little vulgar, pardon my French, but I call it the bench clitoris because it's one of the hardest things to find, but once you find it, your bench becomes orgasmic. So you gotta find that proper spot on your chest where you're coming down and you hit that right spot, so when you fire, it feels easy and it glides, almost like you're in a Smith machine.
So just to add on to what Russ was saying with the setup, yes, you want to set the feet, you want to set the shoulders, set the grip. The one thing I want to talk about is to kind of add on to what Russ was talking about, finding that perfect spot, is your bar path. There's kind of a couple trains of thought on bar path. I can't say what's 100% right for everybody because it's a depends situation. What I mean by that is every person has different leverages. Me and Russ have way different leverages. So it's going to depend on what your strengths are, depend on your leverages. Whether you're going to bench completely straight line or you like to use a curve. It's also going to be dependent on how you use your leg drive and things like that. So I'll walk you through it while I'm doing it. So like Russ said, I'm going to start a little farther back. I'm gonna set my feet. For me, I like to be a little more narrow. Not everyone likes to be that narrow, but for me, I find it works, helps keep my butt down. So from here, I'm gonna swing under, set my shoulders. I'm driving through the ground. I'm staying on my toes because now I compete in a fed where that's allowed. I'm gonna take my huge breath, I unrack, I bring it out, and this is if I'm gonna be benching with a straight line. So I take another breath, I'm down, and it's up. But there are some people that are gonna bench and they're gonna prefer more of an arc. So not much is gonna change. I'm still gonna be under, slide, set my shoulders. All that's really gonna change in this is how far I bring the bar out. So now I'm starting it here instead of out here. So from here, I'll take my breath, pulling it down. I'm going up and back at the same time. So one of the advantages of the straight line is you're gonna really shorten the range of motion. So for a lot of people, that's gonna be a big bonus, but you're gonna also usually be pretty wide. So some people can't handle that because their shoulders, or it's not where their strength is. Some people who like the arc tend to have stronger triceps, they have more leg drive. Usually if you're up on your toes, that feels a little more natural because it goes with the line of your leg drive.
Okay, everybody, I want to talk about the importance of not just your pecs. You can see mine, not so big. Everything else about me is fucking huge, including my arms. So if you look at some of the best benchers in the world, the guys that are hitting, 600 pounds roughly, most of them are these giant dudes with giant arms, and they use their arms a lot on the bench to, bench these impressive weights. So what I want to do is show you kind of how I set up, and I'm a close grip bencher. Why? Because I can use these giant ham hocks to bench. My best in comp bench press was 440 or 200 kilograms, and in the gym, my bro record is 460, and that flew up shortly after I had a pec injury, and I've had several since. So my bench is still, I'm still hitting 4 pies, even though I've lost about 50 pounds. But number one for me, having big bis and tries. This is how I set up. Just like I showed with Darrell here, suck my feet in, pull in. Boom. I'm on my shoulder blades, I wiggle in a little more. Feet out. I don't like going too close, but what I do like is having my heels on the ground, because similar to in grappling and wrestling, I'm in a bridge position. So I can actually drive my back into the bench and treat it more like a decline bench press. So I'm here, before I unrack, you can see how close I'm going with my hands. This is for me. Everybody's different. There you have it, close grip.
Okay guys, so another thing you're gonna wanna really hammer is not just your technique. That's very important, and for a lot of you will be the secret to unlocking a bigger bench, but for a lot is your accessories. Most people neglect their accessory work and don't hit it as hard as their main lifts. They'll go hard on bench press and do a bunch of sets and then do some dog shit rows or pec flies. You really need to treat them all the same and hammer everything with the same intent. So for bench specifically, just for general person, I'm not being too specific. I think most people, what they are missing in their bench regimen, they're not doing enough back work. If you do not have a strong back, you're not gonna have a strong bench. It's just that simple. You're not gonna find anyone with a massive bench press that has a tiny back. You just can't do it. Because to bring the bar down properly on something like that, you're gonna need a stable surface. So if everything back here is weak and you're lowering a heavy load, you've got a shitty foundation to press from. If you build that up and have something strong there, you're gonna get to the point where you're lowering just using your back, and you can save your chest for the press, which it should be. But too many people are just fatiguing their chest on the way down and up. So a big tip would be incorporating a lot of different row variations in upper back work. So whether that's barbell rows, seal rows, dumbbell rows, cable rows, whatever you're doing, hammer that mid back and lats, get everything as strong as possible because it's going to pay off in the long run.
Definitely. Okay, so my top 3 accessories, guys, and you know, another thing, big arms, that's awesome, but shoulders. My shoulders are the strongest part on me in terms of pressing. I can hit about, you know, my best is about a 300-pound strict military press, and that transfers a lot for me over to my bench press. So I do a lot of overhead pressing. I add that as a day in my programming. And not only that, incline press for me. So we got overhead press, incline press is a huge one. So I'm always hitting up incline. I find a lot of people that I get to do incline presses, they're severely weak compared to their flat bench. Whereas mine is comparatively about probably 80 to 90% of what I can do on my flat bench. So bring those shoulders into play, get those 2 movements down. And as Darrell said, you know, doing a lot of rows and back work. I, you know, have the luxury of having my own gym, and so I'm doing some sort of a pull down, a row, or any kind of back work every damn day. And that's what, you know, really helps me build this giant back, because my pecs themselves aren't that great. I don't look like some cool ass bodybuilder, but baby got back.
So along with accessory work, obviously that's going to be dependent, but building up your arms, building up your back, building up your shoulders, there's going to be more specific work you need depending on what you need specifically. When it comes to your bench, you're either weak off the chest, you're weak midway, or you're weak at lockout. If you're off your chest, you're usually weak pecs or weak back. If you're halfway, you're going to see a lot of times that's shoulders. A lot of people weak in that mid-range area and lockout. Most of the time it's going to be your triceps. They just can't lock shit out. So I'm just going to give you a variation for one on each level to improve whatever that is you're lacking in. So off the chest, if you're weak off the chest, I suggest a Larson press or a feet up bench press, something where you're taking the leg drive out of it and relying heavily on your chest. Or it can even be a floor press for that matter. If we're going halfway, then I would suggest something like a Spoto press, where you come down, control, and pause about 2 to 3 inches off your chest, control it, then press. And you want to stay in that range. You don't want to be bouncing even though it's in midair. So a Spoto press or even a pin press from a certain height, or boards, something where you're working from that weak spot. If you're at you want to focus on your lockout specifically, I personally don't like heavy lockouts. I don't see much transfer. I would much rather you just narrow the grip on your bench press and develop the triceps that way and hit something like a heavy board press. So a narrow grip 3 board press or a narrow grip high pin press. All right, and how I would approach it is more dependent on the level of strength of the person I'm dealing with. So for a lot of newbies out there, I honestly, if you're doing it once a week, if you're seeing progress on it, well, then you're probably not watching this right now. So you're probably going to need twice a week, and I'm going to keep you at twice a week until I stop seeing progress. For me, I found twice a week's good so that you can really up the intensity in both. Even if there's a lower percentage on the bar, you can still have a higher intensity workout. You could just do more variations within that workout. For myself, I just like twice a week as someone who's battled with tendonitis quite frequently. I find I can't really handle more than 2, and a few lifters I've dealt with can handle more than that, but I find 2 is kind of that money spot that works perfectly. And much like Russ said, you just got to switch up what you're focusing. I'm not saying do the same shit every single workout or go heavy all the time or go high rep all the time. You got to switch it up. All right, so one thing we also want to talk about is bench frequency. Something a lot of people don't have. They complain about having a bad bench, but they do it once a week or maybe less than that. Russ and I have different philosophies on bench frequency. Russ, what's yours?
Well, I wouldn't say different, just for For me, I would say minimal twice a week, ideally 3 times a week. And when I'm saying you're not going to max out each of those days. So day 1, for example, competition bench, and I would incorporate the pauses, 1 count pause at the bottom. And that's going up to about 80 to 100% of your 1 rep max, depending on your program. If you're following like progressive overload, obviously you go up to about 2.5% each week, slowly gaining strength. And then the second day would be volume, where you're hitting about 60 to 70% higher rep range, just getting those reps in, and that, you know, getting your chest, everything working properly. And then I would throw an extra day in where you're doing some of those specialty benches like Darrell's talking about. I love using, you know, the slingshot, but, you know, different stuff to work your triceps and back, and all those days I'd be doing back as well. And yeah, so for me, 3 times a week, and that's not to be saying that that's all you're doing. Like, one day is dedicated to bench, the other day would be dedicated to maybe overhead press and some sort of bench like incline, and then another day would be volume after you would do a squat or a deadlift. Okay, as we've spoken before, guys, also important, make sure you're eating enough fucking food, nutrition, you're getting in your calories, definitely taking enough protein intake in. I love taking creatine, a supplement, and, you know, I take sodium and my electrolytes and caffeine before I lift. Darrell doesn't take shit, and that's his thing, that's fine. And then, you know, for me, the biggest thing is this fuckery afoot shirt. When I wear this on bench days, I lift about 20% more, so you can buy those at resolutestrengthwear.com.
Alright guys, thanks for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you learned a lot on your bench setup, and hopefully it gets added to your bar. Before you leave, make sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Tell us what you enjoyed about the episode. Tell us what you didn't.
Definitely. Don't forget to eat big,
Train hard,
and always be fight ready.
2 guys, 1 bench. Shit talking. Strength sports. Combat sports. Over.